Hello and welcome to the Hero's Spouse live Q&A on midlife crisis and your marriage. I am Kenda Ruth and I have 4 questions today. So if you have any more questions that you'd like to pop in there, we might be able to get to some of them, or you can just make comments or comments about what I'm talking about. And I will watch the comment stream as I go. Also, let me know if you can't hear me or anything like that. So we are going live on Facebook and on YouTube, and welcome. My membership for Stand Behind for Forward Moving Spouses, Stand Up and Thrive, closes tonight at 9 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. I do know where I'm at. I'm in the Pacific. So that is just under 10 hours from now. 9 hours and 58 minutes. So I'm going to check that I am coming in on both areas, Facebook and YouTube, and I will post. It's in the description of each area of the lives, but I will put in the chat area on Facebook and in the comments. I will put another link again to that, and then we can get started. Okay, that way I refresh and make sure everything's coming in at the same time. So, okay, good. We're working there on YouTube. Yay. Live now. Good. Everything's coming in. Perfect. Okay, comment coming through. Let's make sure it should come. Yep. Okay. So let's get going. And our first one we have is Val. Val has a bomb drop of December 24th, Christmas. I'm so sorry. That really sucks. December 24th, 2023. A date of marriage of 2012. And she says she's not familiar with contact types and energy levels. She says, my husband is 74 years old. He had sepsis. He almost died. Our marriage died after that. He was in a wheelchair and had meds for 18 months. He had never cheated before this. We've been together for 20 years. Then he fell in love with a sex worker. He put her in our business, which is nonprofit. It says addiction, says he fell in love with her. She's now 36 and it's been going on for some time. He pays all of her bills through hidden credit cards. And now he is buying more sex workers, gifts, and etc. Probably at least, are the zeros correct on this? $100,000 a month. They're all very young. I do have a question on if he's in love with this one, but he's buying more of them. We'll also talk about the age, okay, when we get there. But let's read the whole thing, because I know those of you listening are thinking, what, 74? Me too, okay. He has bought many young clothing and eats sugar now, many addictions. He's been in recovery for alcohol and drugs for 35 plus years. I've asked for a post-nup that he has agreed to, and then it says hyphen live separately, but he's agreed to the post-nup, but then the hyphen says live separately. So wasn't sure. Some of the sentences are fragmented, and I'm reading them in that way. He will not sign the paperwork. So I did grab that he agreed to the paperwork for a post-nup. He agreed to say he would do it, but hasn't done it. He says he wants to have continued contact and be by himself. You can do both of those things, okay? We will spend time together. In other words, that means we'll spend time together. But I will get nothing with a prenup. And I'm assuming it's not he will say that. You're saying that's what you know legally. He refuses more therapy, which is typical. My therapist doesn't believe in midlife crisis. I am researching. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is I'm going to be skeptical also. Okay, I'm going to be skeptical of MLC, and sorry, I'm going to be skeptical for that one reason that everybody else is going 74. Yeah, we do have MLCers that are in their 60s. Oftentimes they've been in it for a while, went into it before that. Okay, so, but that doesn't mean you can't go through a crisis, and you don't go through an identity crisis, and you're not going to have similar pieces. But we are going to have differences at each stage of life. So even in midlife crisis, if midlife crisis spans 35, and that is 35 is really young, but you can have 35. Chuck was 39 and a half, so he was just peaking at 40. 46 is average. And when I say the age, I mean at bomb drop is when I put the age. 46 average. And it's 45 to 47 average, depending on how many are in my data point right now. But I think it was 46. And that was pretty much men and women. I think added a few women, and the age might have gone down to 45. But there aren't enough women that it can be skewed up easily right now in my data set. But 74, you might be the oldest. Okay. And so I'm going to be skeptical of that. But what I would do, though, is compare me to my mother. Okay. And let's say we were both having a midlife crisis. We could go into a midlife, and let's say both of us had a midlife crisis at 46. But there are big differences between my mother and I and the life stages we're in at 36. We might be in the same life stages of perimenopause or menopause, me having gone in menopause 10 years before that, or perimenopause 10 years before that, unfortunately. And actually, she'd had some issues before that, but didn't know that was what it was. But so the biology within us, yes. But what about our social lives, our social structure? My mom, she had one child first. I have 5. She had one child just before she turned 25. That was me. I didn't have any children until I was 41. And my last one was born just before I was 45. So I was 20 years older than my mom when I got a baby. That makes a big difference in the life stages. So at 46, imagine the differences in my midlife crisis and what the reasons for it even. My mom was an empty nester at that age. I was a brand new mother with 5 total little ones. I actually had 5 in diapers for a year. It's not fun. So look at life stages of the social structure of the life as well. But then I do look and apply Erik Erikson's stages of life and what is going on in those. I think there are 8 of them. And when you get to the stage of life, and you might want to look at what it says for that age of 74 and what's going on versus the average age range at the midlife age range, and the different things that have to be happening. And he even describes crisis as one of the things that comes up in his description of each word. You come to this transitional phase where you hit this little crisis period. You have to decide on this and this, and you may hit a crisis. So what are the different things that a 74-year-old is having to ask to move forward versus a 46-year-old? And so there's still a crisis. It's just, we have a label of it. So you're still going to get differences. So let's apply it that way. And so you might, but that doesn't mean you won't see some of the things we call these escapism things, because anybody who's in a crisis is probably, why are they in a life transition? When we call this a crisis, we're saying we are escaping or avoiding, trying to move forward to the next one. Well, you could have an escape and avoid to move forward to whatever your next one is for a 74-year-old versus escape and avoid to move on for a 46-year-old. It's just the next thing that a 46-year-old is moving on to is different. But the label escape and avoid may still apply. Liminality that follows it, where you have this ego death and a rebirth, can still apply. So stages that we apply over them, now you have to personalize them. Okay, similar to how the email that I sent out yesterday talked about how you have to personalize. We get all that conflicting advice, but you have to personalize things. And when I talk about things to a general audience, how do I personalize it? I can't personalize it. I have to make it as general as I can. And then I'll try to give little scenarios, and I can get a little bit personal when I get your information because, oh, this one is a vanisher. This one is a clinging boomerang. I can get this a little bit personal because of ages. I can get a little bit personal because of when was bomb dropped, that sort of things, because all of those make a big difference. So there's going to be some big differences of 74. What does all of this mean? The sex care worker? I'm still going to be skeptical of MLC. I'm wondering what else is going on. He has a history of addiction. And when we see somebody, and addicts go through midlife crisis, so it's or life transition identity crisis. We can even label it that. So what the questions I have when I see addicts going through it. And that doesn't mean they're active addicts, but recovering addicts can become active addicts again. And one of the things that I say is oftentimes in those situations, the axis of the crisis, the axis of what they're dealing with, that person is dealing with and needs to focus on as the problem. I mean, you focus on yourself, but when we look at what's going on with that person, is the addiction. So the problem that needs to be resolved within this person, and there's roots that have reasons for the addiction, but we're looking more superficially, it's the addiction. In my situation, the problem, well, first there's Chuck's anxiety, which has not been resolved, let's face it. But also in my situation, one of the axes that we spun around was no house hopping. That was a big deal for mine. He kept coming home. And so we had to figure out, to resolve it, it was not being a revolving door. One of the main themes of midlife crisis is control. And you'll get keywords of freedom, I want my space, control. Those different words can all mean the same basic idea. If you read Laura Doyle, not a midlife crisis book, not a midlife crisis information, and I don't think she knows about midlife crisis, whether she says she does or not. I wouldn't agree. Okay. I think there's an episode on one of her podcasts, and no, But in her, I noticed the theme isn't control, it's respect. So if you hear about the theme of respect, you might be getting something a little bit different. Not that it's not MLC, but control being this a huge cloud for midlife crisis. In these, you can have a midlife crisis, but the real bigger picture is the addiction. And as an addict, he has gone back to some addictive things. He's gone back and he's using women. And he's unfortunately using women that are trafficked or in some form of sex trade. Do they call it trafficked if it's their choice? And is it fair to say it's their choice? Because I'm sure there are some women who that is their choice, but some of them, it might appear to be their choice, but that was because they were initially trafficked and not really given a choice. And now they say it's their choice, but that's all they've known. So I don't know how fair an assessment that is. So there is a dynamic of taking advantage in that, whether he understands it as that. There's a dynamic of being a sugar daddy. At first, when you said eats sugar now, I didn't know if you were actually making a metaphorical reference until you said addictions after that. But you highlighted that he's gone into these addictions, the sugar. He's buying things for people. He is being able to feel like he can take care of these women. Maybe he can feel like he can rescue them. They're in an industry, in a trade that is dangerous for them, that is demeaning to them. And so maybe he feels like he can do that. And he can boost his own ego. I don't know. I'm making all sorts of guesses. Because this is out of the standard of what we see with MLCers. Sure, some of them will have sex care workers as the alienator, or maybe it's not a full alienator, but they have flings and that sort of thing. So instead of a one affair relationship, that it has a full arc of a relationship. But it's the age range and that he's being a sugar daddy to her. It has a lot of different flavors in there. And the high levels of spending that's going on. Also, is there any catfishing going on in here? Given that you're saying $100,000 a month. We have been together. He fell in love with a sex worker. Where is this sex worker? When you say this, and this is something I hadn't thought of until just now when I was keying in on the large amount. I mean, I was just assuming that we were dealing with local people. But we hear all about the catfishing things that are going on, and you've added more people into it. Now he's buying more, and he's buying them gifts. What else is going on here? You know, that's what I want to, I'm concerned in that way. And he was in a wheelchair, sepsis, wheelchair, and meds. What other things happened to him mentally? What is his mental capacity? and maybe it appears fine, which might not give you any power, even if it isn't really fine. How erratic is he being in his behavior? Not just behavior that you can say, well, that's erratic because he's spending money on women. But look at other pieces. Is there anything where you can claim and it could be taken seriously by the courts? That's a long shot. I mean, it's a super serious long shot. But is it? It's still a question to ask. Because of the wheelchair and the meds and, is there anything that has gone on with his brain? What, at 74, it's got a few years left. But what else happened to his brain? Is there dementia going on in there? Our church grandma is 75 and she has Parkinson's, and we're watching her go down, down, down. She now looks 10 years older. She can't walk. Well, she can, but she falls over. She shouldn't be driving, and she just had a car accident. It happens fast. He's 74. So, what is his capacity? And I hate saying that because I don't think of 74 as old. It's hard. I don't look at things like I look for my children. I guess my mom must look old to my kids. Now she has a cane and she is old, but I still see that young woman. See her as younger than me then, which is odd because I don't, but he is somebody who's been in a wheelchair for that long, and I'm assuming he's out now. There are some other things going on, and he had that was really scary for him. And I don't know what kind of power you have. I don't know what kind of things you can do. I'm sorry for it. So MLC isn't the only thing to research. You're probably not going to get a lot by researching MLC either. And here's why. It's not official. MLC is not listed in the DSM. It is not considered a pathology. We might consider it a condition, but officially as a condition, it's like the terrible twos or teen angst. That's just a description of what teenagers are like, or 2-year-olds are like. At midlife crisis, some people go through a depression, and it is a bigger thing than that. And we have a description of it, but there's so many comorbidities that go with it. I'm not even a proponent of putting it in a DSM. I wish it could be labeled as a condition and recognized, and identity crises could be recognized and understood for therapeutic reasons, so that therapists would be well versed in them and how to handle them. But pathologizing them, is a whole nother thing. And I think you're going to be, if you direct your research, I'm not saying don't look at that, but I don't want you to focus only on that, because I think you're going to be wasting your time. I want you to scatter at other areas. Okay. Let's see what time we're at and move forward. We have number 2. We have an anonymous female left behind and forward moving spouse with a bomb drop of, this is a recent bomb drop, June 30th, 2024, a date of marriage of 2000. And she says vanisher and low energy wallower. We're going to ask why, okay, on both of those, because it's not that I'm skeptical, but when we have a recent bomb drop, usually if they are clinging boomerang, it can be clear. Although even that can change. But vanisher, the time hasn't, we don't have enough time. And most people, and I talked about this, I believe it was Thursday. I don't think it was Monday. I think it was Thursday on that live. We had one person who did have a recent bomb drop, and the description actually fit vanisher. I was like, wow, trend lines being what they are. It can still change. I like to, when it's that, I like to give 12 months before we're really set. Okay, yeah, that really is a vanisher. But the trend lines on that we're showing. The trend lines on this, no, we're not at vanisher yet. Okay, so here's what she says. My MLCer has displayed every ounce of what a vanisher is. And not from the description below. No, I don't agree. Here's why. We'll get there. When I was able to speak to him right after bomb drop, he didn't say much. Not speaking while you're standing in front of a person has nothing to do with it, okay? And he doesn't want to try counseling. Nothing to do with vanisher. None of the others want to try counseling, okay? I don't know if that's some of the attributes you're putting on vanishers, but I know there's another woman. He denies it. Normal. He filed for divorce last week. So I don't think there's any chance of reconciliation. That's actually the bigger piece I want to highlight right there. We're saying because he filed for divorce, and yes, that is a soon filing, a quick filing, given most don't file that quickly, but it's still within. We see it all the time, but not most. I see it all the time because I see a lot of MLCers and I read a lot of stories. Most of them don't file that quickly. Mine did too, though. You get some that'll file after 2 years, 4 years, 3 years. The LBS, the left behind spouse, will file because it's been so long. Yeah. So, but filing for divorce, why are you assuming that therefore means there's no chance of reconciliation? My bomb drop was March 20th, 2005. Chuck filed for divorce. I believe the official date of filing was it June or July 9th? June 9th, maybe. And yeah, June 9th, because July 9th was the day he came over to our house where I had a recording device hidden and recorded the conversation. I did it only once because of the 3 hours it took me to transcribe it, but I got good and interesting information. But and then we stopped the divorce on August 24th. That was 19 years ago. I'm not divorced. Okay. We struggle. He has a severe anxiety disorder. I wouldn't have called it severe before. I would have called it always present because he had it before I met him. Okay. But 5 kids, the foster department, the adoption process. It's gotten worse. COVID. And at the start of COVID, when we were doing some excavation, a severe medical disorder that is still sort of diagnosed, undiagnosed, not untreated, but not being helped, not getting better. He finally went to a doctor now and was told that the doctor he saw back then, the doctor was shocked at why didn't he do this? His negligence, that doctor was retiring, that previous one, of dismissing you and telling you this is only because of your stress and anxiety. It's nothing. Could have caused you to develop cancer. He was just told that, and that maybe you'll need surgery. So Chuck's saying maybe I'll have to get surgery in the new year. He's been on forums like ours, but for support groups, for whatever, and said, does anybody have this condition? Because they're all gastric conditions. 3 out of this giant forum said, yes, we have that. They have colostomy bags from their surgery. So it's like, okay, I guess I don't want surgery. So his anxiety has gone up. Okay. So, we deal with that, but I'm not divorced. Okay. Filing for divorce doesn't mean you won't reconcile. It doesn't guarantee you will. I don't want people to look at my situation and say, yeah, I made it. So 100% chance you will. Oh, you're real. Unfortunately, I am in the minority. But you know why I do this? Because I don't want to be in the minority. I want you guys to reconcile. I want you to want to. And I want reconciliations. I want to prevent those divorces. And no, he filed for the same reasons that you're describing in here, that we'll get to. A controlling alienator. Okay? She was telling him he had to do it. So let's move forward on this. He filed for divorce last week, so I don't think there's any chance of reconciliation. I'd love to know, how do you handle the transition? So I think your question is, how do you handle the transition of divorce? It's been hard. We've been together since we were 17. But listening to the webinars explains so much, and I truly believe this is what's happening. My bomb drop was June 30th of this year, but he'd been considering it for a while. So the question I have with you is, that's not uncommon if he's been having an affair before. And my question on June 30th, was this something, bomb drop came out that day. Did you know before that? Did you suspect before that? Or was that your day? Or did he bring up bomb drop, or did you ask, hey, I found out about an affair, and you bring it out? Those are just, not that you have to say, those are just thoughts. Okay. I'm positive he's been seeing someone for at least a year and a half. So it sounds to me like, I think you say you've researched on her, but you call her someone rather than, I know he has an alienator, although he denies, but instinctively, intuitively, yeah, I get it. I feel she is dictating every response because to the few text messages I've sent, it's her words, not his. In other words, it's not his words. That's good. I like that you are attentive in that way. Okay. She's undoubtedly a manipulative alienator. Now, yeah. My research on her, which is what? Okay. Confirms this is her usual behavior. She covets what belongs to others. So it sounds like you say someone, but it sounds, when you say my research on her, it sounds like you do know who she is. Even if you don't know her personally, you've discovered the identity of the person or around. Okay. Moving on. My research is, so covets what she belongs to others. Are you thinking she's borderline or narcissist? Given those. Okay. My husband filed for divorce because our communication had dwindled to minimum texting. It is that exact sentence where I say, no, he's not a vanisher. You're looking at the communication dwindled. I'm looking at you had communication. You had minimum texting. That's communication. Okay. If you have a vanisher, vanish means vanish. It doesn't involve minimum anything. It involves zero pretty much. Twice a year contact. Okay. So I'll read the comment in a moment after I finish. I'll talk more about this, but I'm going to finish because it's a long. Okay. My husband filed for divorce because of the minimum communication. And finally, I urged my attorney to initiate. But he'd already done it, right? Do you mean to respond? I'm not sure on that. He filed on September 26th. He refused counseling, which leads me to suspect another person's involvement. They refuse counseling even when there's not, but yeah, I get it. Dealing with someone who refuses to communicate and knowing the messages received are not from him is challenging. Well, yeah, it is challenging. It also, there can be that confirmation of, this is going to sound strange, but I'm going to give you some good news. You have an affair down. Okay, the fact that you have an affair, bad news. But if I'm going to choose all of the kinds of affair you have, yay, you have an affair down. Okay. Because, hey, do you want the affair to be, other than that, you're making a mistake because you're two people that have fallen in love, but it's doomed because of you're destroying a relationship. But you know what? Some affairs do last. My dad was the other man, not with my mom, with his fourth wife. They were married for 29 years till he died. Okay. Yeah. She was married for 20 or almost 20 years. They had an affair, and it was a few years where they were sneaking around. And you know who knew about it? His 12-year-old daughter, me, and my little brother. Because we were there on the weekends. That's how I saw my brother. He was my half brother. And we went on little weekend vacations with them both, and we knew she had a family. But their marriage, when they got married, it didn't end. Okay. I wouldn't call it a thriving. If successful means they didn't, they never divorced, then you can call it that. But I wouldn't say thriving. They weren't pleasant to be around. But yeah, they stayed together. Okay. And they weren't going to. I think they had a need for each other. Okay. So we've been together for 30 years, since we were 17, and this behavior is uncharacteristic of him. Reconciliation, again, we're repeating this, seems impossible. Here's the thing. Because he's filed and he's determined to proceed. Yeah. They file, and you are so close to the beginning. June 30th. So let's just say July, because that's the last day doing it. July, August, September. And half of you are 3.5 months in. Raw newbie. You're raw newbie. I mean, I know not 2 weeks, but 3.5, that is still new. And especially for him. in the marathon. You're not at the half mile of a marathon yet. You're not at the quarter mile. This is absolutely raw, where mixed messages are constant. I also wonder why you think he's low energy. I haven't seen that you've shown low or high, because you haven't described either. Okay. But if he has an alienator, and if she's like that, he might be high energy. Okay. I believe she's influencing him as well. Definitely, if she's doing those text messages, yeah. She's married, so you know that about her, and her husband filed on August 30th of this year. Okay. So this is not a situation. We don't have enough information on the doomed piece. You can say, you can draw your line in the sand. You haven't said you are or aren't. What you've said is because he filed, you think there's no chance. And so what I'm here to say is, yeah, you can certainly say there's no chance because I say there's no chance. You being the I. You can say that you put my line in the sand, and I'm not standing for this. You cheated on me. We're done, buddy. It's your choice. I support it fully. It's not about agree or disagree with it because that's not my business. You are allowed to do that, and good for you. Take your power. But I'm also going to be fully supportive of you if you like, take your power, and I get a say in this, and no, that is not how our marriage is going to end. Now, you don't get to dictate the legal part, but you can still say, you know what? No, I don't agree. And I am going to stand for my marriage. Remember, mine certainly, he seemed like he was, what did you say? Determined to proceed. But here's the thing about Chuck. And then he didn't. And then he did. And then he didn't. And then he did. And then he didn't. He became a rapid cycler. It was very confusing. But it was also only a few weeks in that I realized, I even remember posting it I probably just joined Divorce Busting, the forums. And I just realized, I said that I'm it's not that I'm a wife with a cheating husband. I'm a wife with a sick husband. The way he was rapidly changing his mind so much, it was clearly insane. He couldn't figure himself out. In fact, he was still at home and he was rolling in bed like this, not knowing that I was awake next to him through the night. And he was screaming or maybe just saying, I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad, while sleeping, or not really sleeping, but, well, not knowing I could hear him. I mean, he would come home one personality. He would take a nap. He would wake up a different personality. It was insane. And the monstering, which wasn't as much, because then it would change, because then he'd take a nap and it was different. Or he would go out, and exercise really is like a nap for him, in the sense that he can get out the anxiety and that sort of thing. He calms down. So he'd go mow the lawn and come back different. He got upset because I did not respond one day when he wanted me to mow the lawn. It was March. No, it must have been April, because March 20th was bomb drop. So it could have been still March, but I was working in my office, and I don't think it was probably the best time to mow the lawn. It was raining, or about to rain. A few minutes later, I looked out the window from my office, and there he was in, I don't think it was just shorts. I think he was wearing boxers, slippers, and a flannel shirt. Did he have anything under this flannel shirt? It was open. Mowing the lawn. Probably had a hat on. Boxers, slippers, and a flannel shirt, and the rain. He wanted the lawn mowed so badly. He just got in his mind that it had to be mowed. And I looked out there and I'm like, this is a really bad time to mow. It's raining. And you're not dressed well. Slippers with a lawnmower. Shorts that are boxer shorts. I mean, something you can't go to the store in. So, here's what I want you to do. I want you to make sure to take Understanding Midlife Crisis. I want you to understand the insanity. I want you to understand that they change their minds. I'm not going to guarantee you anything. I want you to understand the mixed messages. I want you to also look up what in your research, the research that you can focus on here, affair downs. In fact, I'm going to go to my affair down articles and link it, okay? And while I do that, Timothy, I'm going to read yours. Wife has been a lesbian relationship for a year now. I'm sorry. She cheated and lied about it, but will not initiate a divorce, and you're tired. Okay, so the question that I am going to have for you then, it's rhetorical, is do you want the divorce or are you standing? And has she responded to anything such as, well, why will she not initiate the divorce? Is it because she gets advantages that she can take advantage of you? Like, well, I'm not going to divorce you because I'm on your insurance. So I get advantages from you that are benefits. It's a benefits program. You're my benefits program, in other words. So my aunt and uncle, my aunt's from Canada, and when my mom's brother, when they split up, and it was amicable, and she left, and it was a midlife thing, I'm pretty sure. But they agreed not to divorce for several years because of the benefits, I think, that she was under his program. But maybe is your wife doing it as to take advantage because of that? That's just one reason. Or is she just not ready? Or is she just not want to do the paperwork? Or is she just so focused? MLCers, like, why do I need to do that paperwork? It's just a piece of paper. I don't consider myself married. I'm not cheating because I said I was done. And so that's all. Kind of like, what is it biblically? I walk around you 3 times. I say, I divorce thee, I divorce thee, I divorce thee. Say it 3 times and that makes it legal. I think you have to have a witness to it, but that doesn't count in these times, but it counts to them. Well, I told you I was done, so that counts. No, it doesn't. It doesn't count. It's not how it works. So, Timothy, you need to decide what you want to do. You're tired. So, and let's set that aside. You're tired. What are you going to do about that? What kind of healing have you done for yourself? Okay. I know I'm interjecting in the middle of one here. So we'll talk about both. And this is for both and everybody. When you're tired, and to anonymous number 2 here also, you're going to get really tired because of all of this. What are you going to do to heal? You're tired, so you need to put yourself first. You need to work on your healing. And anonymous, you're going to be dealing with this, and if you don't want your relationship to end, even though the odds being against you, and you think, oh, well, he's set in his ways. He should be set in his ways. He is in limerence. Limerence wins. Understand that. Limerence is not forever, but limerence wins. And I was in the middle of looking up my affair down article to link it also. So I stopped while I was talking. It's hard to talk and go through everything and find it at the same time sometimes. But I want you to understand, limerence wins. So they are going to seem like they are set and determined, and there's no chance for you. But I want you to look up emotional blackmail. There is a book called Emotional Blackmail by Susan Forward. It deals with what she calls fog, fear, obligation, and guilt. If you have an affair down there, probably using emotional blackmail against your MLCer. It is a form of extortion. It is what Chuck had. The alienator faked a pregnancy to trap him. She was 41, and a few months after the faking pregnancy, she got a hysterectomy, so probably not. She then told him she was going to not fix some fake thing that was on her brain, and she would die if he didn't come back to her. She guilted him. Well, my mom is really sick. You should come stay with me. My friends would do that. So guilt. My life is in a shambles. I lost my job because of you. They worked together. She got fired. Now she was working as a certified nursing assistant at a hospital. I don't want to get fired because of you. Every time I leave, she would stop going to, she would call in sick to work every time she thought he was going to move out when he was living with her. That was her choice. She did that to prevent him from leaving. So because he only moved out from her when he could sneak out, and she knew it. And it was very clear on the energy when he was starting to lean out. And so she would stop going to work. That's her choice. But it's this guilt, blaming, blaming, blaming. And it traps a person. Limerence wins. That is that thing we think is called in love. It's really called limerence. Infatuation. It wins, but it doesn't last. So it's like the battle versus the war. Okay. So limerence wins, but here's the other thing. It gets its hooks in, and those hooks are barbed. Okay. So getting them out is harder. But the other thing is that emotional blackmail is just as strong. So even when limerence might be done, or sometimes the fake pregnancy in my situation was at the beginning. Let's see, what do they say? March 20th, bomb drop. June, filing. August 24th, we walked into his lawyer's office and stopped the filing together. That's how we know it was stopped. We were there together. Both signed the paperwork. They said congratulations, and we left. That was it for the legal stuff for the next several years of his midlife crisis continued without the legal stuff. Now, that was August 24th. That evening, she discovered he was gone. She faked a pregnancy. She took a pregnancy test, faked a pregnancy. That soon after bomb drop. All in. So that seemed, well, that's really fast. She's getting in. Are the rose-colored glasses coming off of your face, Chuck? It was only a few months later that she did that suicide thing. But no, his relationship lasted with her for a few more years. Limerence wins. Look at Bonnie and Clyde. Limerence wins. That woman chased him on a murder spree and would have defended him and did. Sure, she had a severe trauma background too. But limerence wins. Even when it is absolutely insane, limerence wins. It is those chemicals. They latch in. But let's say the situation really is, and so something so dramatic happens, and maybe their trauma background isn't so bad or something, and it does kick limerence, and like, okay, you're done. But emotional blackmail can take over. Maybe it's not limerence, but now they're just trapped. They feel trapped because the person uses extortion. I'll tell so-and-so, I'll do this, I'll do this. You should feel so guilty for having done this to me. You owe me. And that's what she told Chuck. You owe me. Your wife, she's fine. She's strong. She can handle being without you. But I can't. I'm not strong. Poor baby. I mean, sorry. I'm empathy, but not going to be sympathetic. That's a victim. But that works sometimes. That works on rescuers. That works on people who are feeling guilty. They felt trapped. It works on people who are weak. And in MLC, people are weakened and weak. So, yeah, right now, it is going to seem like he is determined to proceed. And so you can say, yeah, you said that. And he might seem determined for the next year, 2 years, 3 years. Or he won't seem determined, and he will, and he won't, and he won't. Because you'll see the mixed message and you realize that it's not really as it seems. You might not see those, depending on the type, depending on what's going on, depending on how much of a vanisher he is, depending on how clinging he is versus on whether Boomerang. Right now, you're still in Boomerang territory because you have texting. You have contact. Okay? For both you, Timothy, and everybody out there, your job is to heal. Focus on yourself. That's how, especially Anonymous here, you're in the crazy making. You're in the crazy making stage of it because of this beginning. And so you need to step out and work on the detachment. Get some therapy. Some time to breathe. That slows you down, okay? And focus on you. You don't have to choose to stand. It's okay. My advice on standing is you stand for a grace period. And that is, you know what? I don't know. I mean, I was really disappointed in my marriage, and it was a great marriage, but that guy cheated on me. But I'm so upset right now. I'm too upset to make a choice like that. It's amygdala activation. I'm in fight or flight. I'm not in a place where I should be signing contracts and, even when they're divorce contracts. I need to wait till I'm in a more stable, emotionally regulated. So that is my feeling of you stand in a grace period. There's a grace period before you make a final decision. Even when the decision's being made for you, you make a decision where you say, okay, I want it now too. Or at least I agree to it. Because if you get to say, I agree to this, or I'll do it. It's not what I wanted, but yeah, sure, whatever. Sign, here's my name. Take your power back. The power of your choice. Okay. So take the course, Understanding Midlife Crisis. Go through it. Like I said last time, it is amazing how many people enroll but don't listen. I mean, when I say don't listen to even the first video. It's a series of videos. Together, they are probably about 2 hours, 2 to 2.5. Okay. And it's just me and a talking head. So you can just listen while you're doing other stuff. You don't need to watch my face. Okay. But it will give you information about this. And I said, again, I'm supposed to be looking up that Affair Down article. Sorry. All chapters article list. I'm going to my website. I go to a table of contents and Affair Down. So the Affair Down article, there's a couple of them. So I'm just going to put the first one in because they will click to the next. It is in the middle, though. It is on the chapter 21, because this is my manuscript. This is the rough draft. I don't put every new draft out on here. But chapter 21, Betrayed, Dealing with Infidelity. The fifth portion of it, because each article for putting it out on the internet, you put it in pieces. So it's the Affair Down. After that, it says an Affair Down alienator is an advantage. Remember what I said? Yay, you have an affair down. And then I said, what makes the alienator affair down is the next. So I would go through. I recommend reading all of it. I wrote it. I recommend reading my stuff. But well, I'm just going to click to link that first one. And I'm going to put it in but the comments I'm doing are on the Facebook page. Okay. Because I haven't figured out still how to do the chat thingy on, where is it? Okay, on YouTube, sorry. Okay, I know I talked forever, so let's move on. Anonymous, if you have questions, send them again, okay? I will, I'll recognize the email, okay? I go back and re-listen to these so that I can have an informed answer the next time, if I have time. Okay, so the next answers I will give for the next, the 8-week period is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It will be pre-recorded. It says live, but it's pre-recorded. I do one on Monday, one goes out on Wednesday, one goes out on Friday. If you don't see one pop out, it means I didn't get enough submissions, so please submit, okay? Because right now I'm reading all of them. So I need a submission. I don't have anything for Monday, okay? So we're going to go to number 3. I will do all of these today. Number 3 is an anonymous female left behind at forward moving spouse with a bomb drop of January 13th, 2023. She, date of marriage of 2001. She has a Boomerang who is a low energy wallower. She says, my husband will text me about once every 3 weeks. Sometimes he'll call me or stop by our business, which I like. I get it. Because I can actually see that he's looking healthy, and also because I like this, that you say this, because selfishly I miss him. That's cute. But when he does come around, the conversations will last for hours. Anytime I see him, I try to be calm. Good for you. Yes. I see what you're doing and I like it. I try to be calm and help him feel good about himself. Yeah. Yep. You're boosting him up. Okay. Even though he has caused me so much chaos with his crisis. One night we talked for 11 hours. Well, I mostly listened. Excuse me. He always gets emotional and cries about not wanting to hurt me anymore. So I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think you have a boomerang. I think you have a clinging boomerang. I know that it's maybe a borderline in the sense that it sounds like you're not saying, oh, he says he needs reassurance that I'm there. And maybe 11 hours, there's probably a lot in there, though. But he is coming in. He's getting an emotional need met by you, and he knows it. It's not just that he's doing it, but he knows it. Because you didn't describe this as a one-time thing. It's when he comes around, the conversations will last for hours. Not one time he came around and we had a long one. It's one night we talked for 11 hours, but that's just an example. Okay. So he always gets emotional, cries about not wanting to hurt me anymore, and how he needs to move forward with the breakup so he can have pride again. What is this about? It's about a midlife crisis. It's about feeling ashamed. But what is he feeling ashamed about? Okay, I can't tell you everything he's feeling ashamed about. But he is feeling terrible about not wanting to hurt you anymore. Right there. He's feeling guilty. And he doesn't want to be that man, so he's ashamed of that he's being that man. And then you may know more about whatever the trauma roots are and whatever shames he's felt in the past and what is bubbling up. Or you might not. Sometimes we don't know. Okay. But right there, he wants to be proud. He wants to be a man that he can be proud of, not a man who hurts women. And we don't mean physically. We mean not a man who destroys a woman's life so that she feels destroyed and hurt. He wants to be proud of himself. And he's not. He's ashamed of himself. It's the opposite of pride in that sense. Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually doing good now, and he's not the one crying, yet he did this. Yeah, that's normal. Okay. It has been almost 2 years for you. 2 years at the new year. Yeah, I would expect that. Not for everybody, but you're coming around. You're healing. MLC gets worse before it gets better. He is in that. He's in the gets worse part. But you're not. When I say MLC gets worse, that doesn't mean that the left behind spouse gets worse. The left behind spouse is doing their healing during the MLCer's crisis. The MLCer does their healing afterwards, or at least after the liminality part, or starting there maybe sometimes. So no, your healing comes before his. Okay, so you should be, even though he did this. I know. My mother-in-law passed away a couple weeks ago, and okay, so I'm gonna you haven't asked, but I'm gonna say one of the questions I sometimes get is, well, will something big like a crisis kick him out of it? And especially since oftentimes a mother, father-in-law, that their parents is a trigger for kicking him in. If a crisis will kick him in, why doesn't a crisis kick him out? Well, what if the crisis happened 6 months later? Well, or what if a crisis happened 2 weeks after bomb drop? Why would it kick him out? They just went in, that sort of thing. Same thing with the 6 months. Yes, a crisis can kick them out if they're ready to go out, because MLCers will sit there ready to exit MLC. Some of them just, will exit when they exit. Some of them will sit there I always picture it as an archway. Don't ask me why. But the pearly gates, and I picture it as an arch. They will sit there on this side of it. They're scared. They're scared. Not exiting. They're just sitting there, not kind of being stagnant with it, not moving forward with their life. It doesn't mean they're in escape and avoid anymore. It's just they're not integrating back into society, becoming the whole person they could be. Not acknowledging, not the insight, even though they have it there, but they're not applying it. Okay. And a crisis can do that. Oh my God, I better get my life in gear. Everyone's about to leave me. A new crisis can kick them out. But if they're in the middle of their escape and avoid, no. Now, an awakening, something can happen that can cause an awakening. Awakening, though, isn't when they're at the end. The awakening is what brings them to, oh my God, what am I doing and what have I done? I've destroyed everything. I've destroyed everything. I can't face the world. So that is what starts them toward liminality. Ego death, not the exit. It's toward the exit, but it's a long ways off in front of them. Okay. So his mom died. Okay. After being ill for a long time. His father died in 2017. So I just state that as if you were going to say, hey, is that going to do anything? No, not necessarily. You're you're still in that point where he could be exiting, escape, and avoid, but not necessarily. 18 months is the early phase of exiting, escape, and avoid. If you're going to put times on them, which I know I talk about times, we still shouldn't, but at the earliest. But it can last for years too, but the earliest. And he says his father died in 27, which is when I believe the crisis really started for him. How can he go long stretches with no communication and then want to talk for hours, but he never asks about my life? And the but was after the question. That's a statement. Well, the never asking about your life is because his midlife crisis is navel gazing. It is an inward, it's not insightful, but inward focused, just curled inward, navel gazing. And the empathy. So think about how do they care about that other person, the alienator? Because empathy is tunneled, if they have it. And it's lasered toward that person, but it's blocked for the most part. He has it for himself. It's the negative side of selfish. Sometimes when you say self-centered, it can mean balanced in yourself, becoming well balanced. But here it's at the expense of others. So he's focused on himself so much that it's not even on his radar that he's not asking you. It's not just that it's not that he doesn't care. He's probably not even aware that he's not asking you. And if you did start to talk about yourself, he might become disinterested. Might not, but probably really quickly become disinterested because it's not about him. And, most people's favorite subject is themselves anyway. How could he go long stretches without communication and then want to talk for hours? So you have a really good discussion and a talk with somebody. Then you have to withdraw. Withdrawal after a good event of communication is for processing. You go and maybe you even felt it was too much that you revealed and you became vulnerable. You made yourself so vulnerable, you have to pull yourself back in. You turtle out, and now I have to pull myself back in and process what just happened. And so he lets himself out. Is he an introvert? He exposes himself. He's exposing himself. And by exposing, I'm talking about the good. I'm not talking a flasher. He's allowing himself to be vulnerable to and with you. But what are some of the things we do when we're vulnerable? A hermit crab it is vulnerable when it is between shells. As it's out there it's looking for a new shell. It's vulnerable. So then it has to have time in its house, okay, where it feels safe and secure. When you're out there feeling vulnerable, do you feel safe? And so he has to go back in for a period and he has to feel safe again so that and process this. So there's going to be an emotional processing. And your job is just to continue to help him to feel safe, being vulnerable. And it sounds like you are working on that. And that's great. It's just, this is how he's going to work with it. Long stretches with no communication, and then he's back in. Okay. Okay, I know we're at time, but I only have one more. I'm going to do it. Okay. Our last one is an anonymous female left behind and forward moving spouse with a bomb drop of July 15th, 2020. Date of marriage of, I think it's 2005. I wrote it in here. So yeah. And she says he is an off and on, and she's unfamiliar with energy levels. And it says anonymous, but, oh yeah. I typed this by hand from my thing, so I want to check because I wrote anonymous. But I didn't change the yes in my form, so I think she said stay anonymous, but I'm going to double check. No, it says don't have to be anonymous. So we have Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. Sorry. Okay. So we have bomb drop, date of marriage 2005. Okay. She says we've been married 19 years yesterday, And I think this was submitted yesterday. So he separated from me and moved out in 2020. Then we got back together in 2021. Then the end of last year. So end of last year, 2023. Okay. He started saying we shouldn't be together and he doesn't make me happy. Then it stopped. And this year, about 6 months ago, he stopped telling me anything after work and started going to a bar. He invites me once a week and he invites me to do stuff like once a week or for the weekend. Now, he's still at home, but he says that I don't make him happy and he's bored. I'm boring. But when we do stuff, we have fun. I love him and I want to reconcile, but because he's already done this, I don't want him to think that he can walk all over me either. He still lives at home, but comes home very late at night. What do I do? Okay. So Rebecca, a few things I'm going to tell you. First thing, figure out your boundaries, what they are. I'm not going to tell you what they are because I want you to figure out what they are, okay? Because they might be different than what anyone else's are, than what I would, okay? He's a boomerang. He's not an off and on. Going out to bars, he's probably a high energy at this point. But here's what can happen when you have a midlife crisis. I'm glad you said your bomb drop was 2020 rather than, and then second bomb drop, you kind of did. But if you have a midlife crisis and you get back together really fast like that, and it's a midlife crisis, if I say, sometimes I call it if you yank them out the front, or if they are yanked out the front, might not be because of you, there is a strong likelihood they will go back in for a worse crisis later. Sometimes I call them, sometimes those are two separate crises, but it is a worse because they are separated by 10 years. You're only separated still by 3 years. 3.5 years. Okay. That is still an arc of the same crisis where he was home during it. He came home. He got back together in 2021, 2 years later. But you got back together. He was probably still going through his crisis. And maybe you thought that it was okay. Maybe you felt it was rocky. Maybe you weren't aware. I don't know. But so it's still the same crisis. You're right. Now, next, I don't make him happy. I think you might know this. It's not your job to make someone happy. We choose our happiness and he's not feeling it right now. Okay. But he's not acknowledging that we're having fun either. Because you say we're having fun when we do stuff together. But the big thing is I love him. I want to reconcile. In other words, I want us to stay together. I want us to heal together. I want us to be together. And I want us to, have a successful and thriving marriage and rebuild our relationship. But because he's done this, and he's been doing this, in other words, and he's just ramped it back up, I don't want him to think he can walk all over me. So a first thing, I'm going to point out one part, which may or may not be happening. Okay, this might just be, it went stagnant for a while and he's back to his regular escape and avoid, or, this is a big or, because I don't have enough information on your situation, or, Heart's Blessing is the one who really talks about this, and I talk about it in different ways, and I want to be fast because I'm at the end, but at the final stages of MLC, we can have a period where we revisit the stages of MLC. We go back to liminality a little bit. We go back. Heart's Blessing talks about we shut the doors on them. But you will see another mini better not last as long. You will see escape and avoid again. In other words, you can see replay behavior if they were a high energy replayer. You will see that behavior again. You will see a resurgence. And you're thinking, WTF, I did this 3 years ago. What is happening? Are we going through it again? Why is this happening? We already solved this. And that might be also what's going on. In other words, he could be going reverse through the stages to shut the door on them. I'm not saying that is. So we got two different scenarios going on. Is we had a kind of pause or a mild piece of his escape and avoid where it felt like not much was going on, and now it's ramped up again, still in his MLC. Or he was traipsing through his MLC, he got near the end, and now he's reversing back to revisit and shut the doors on pieces. I know we'd rather have it be that second one, we'd rather be back to revisit, because that really explains some things. But because I don't know what was going on when you thought you were healing, it may be the first, I don't know, okay? But those are the two different ideas of whether he's revisiting. So I'm saying, I'm giving you that idea as a reassurance to you of, and everyone else. One of the things to expect when you think things are doing well, and maybe you've started to get back together, and then they start to do it again, it's not because it's happening again. It's one of these next stages as they are preparing to be done. Think about what a bachelor party's for. It's like the guy knows he's about to be married, and so they go out on a big giant bender with naked women. That's why some men refuse to do it too. That doesn't seem like an appropriate thing, really, does it, for what you're about to do? I'm giving my life up so that I can be monogamous now, so I'm going to go hang out with naked women. Ew. Ew. So this is that kind of idea is, I'm going to exit to real life. I better go back and I'm going to shut the door on those stages. To shut the door on them, you have to get in there a little bit and, check out that behavior. Is that what I'm leaving? Is that what I'm leaving? And do I really want to get back into this life? I go see what am I leaving behind? Bachelor party. I'm leaving behind. So I have a bachelor party for my last hurrah. Maybe it's similar. And, he still comes home. He comes home late. What do I do? You do set boundaries. So, and you have to also understand, remember, if you set a boundary, that's a consequence to that boundary. So I want you to figure out what that consequence is. And is it a consequence you can apply? In other words, will he just blow through the consequence and you have no power to apply it? Is the consequence going to damage any reconciliation odds? So I want you to think about all of these things, and also therapy. And he may not agree to therapy now. Or he might. But he might agree to therapy later and you go now. Okay, I want you to think about all of those things. Is when you do therapy, or when he, at some point, when it really is at where you're both on the agreement of we're together and rebuilding, that's when it is, okay, therapy is a requirement when you enter an agreement. That's how they prove they're ready. Okay, I'm going to read your last one, and it's coming, and get going, because I only have 50 minutes until my Thrive meeting, and I might be able to grab lunch. If midlife crisis is ending during the mini replay, do you continue to keep boundaries? Yeah. My spouse never admitted to having an alien or monsters when I bring it up. Oh yeah. Okay, so yes, you basically in life we always have boundaries, and they may be different boundaries for different circumstances. So during that, you keep boundaries. If this boundary, whatever it is, I'm not defining it, is going to be important to you, then the question is, why would you get rid of it? Would that same boundary be important to you too during a marriage? You have to look and see what they're going to do and not do. Such as, one of the things when I say boundaries that you have the power to hold is, I changed the locks on our doors when Chuck wasn't home. I didn't do it every time. I wanted to encourage him silently so he didn't know, but just, to come into the house. I kind of wanted him. It gave me a validation that he was still interested in coming and sitting in our home, and when I was at work, hang out with the dogs. But later on, one of the boundaries was, hey, you can't come here. This isn't your house. You left, buddy. And so I changed the locks, which showed a few things. First thing, he didn't think I had the capability of actually doing the hardware to change the lock. It wasn't easy, actually, going in and the bolt and everything. He was shocked. I watched through the peephole, and we had a peep window like this big. You could see my eye. And the look on his face that when he discovered that this didn't work. But legally, I couldn't do that. Legally, I didn't have the right legally to keep him from his house, because we're both owners of the house. But I also knew that Chuck wasn't going to go to the law and say, hey, my wife won't let me in my home. So I had the power. He gave me that power. We didn't discuss it. I don't even know if he knew that, but he probably could have asked people and they would have told him. And he probably would have said, yeah, but you know what? I'm over here. That's her space. He had, I don't know if I even want to call it a respect, but there was a respect boundary in there that he wasn't going to break through that. So he gave me this power also by not going to the law. But many of them will not do that. And so you can't really change the locks. because they will call you on it and get the police on you, and you have to somehow let them through. Or when you can't kick them out and you refuse to leave also, but they'll refuse to leave and you have no power to kick them out, then it's not very good to set a consequence saying you can't live here. So what are you going to do? You know, if I wanted to kick Chuck out, I don't want to right now. That would be a really bad consequence for me to set, because there would be other consequences with him being gone and 5 children. And what that would do to, and not just like, first thing, if he were so mad, what would he pull on that? But what would happen to my children and the damages it would do to them also, if I wanted to kick him out for some reason. You know, so you have to think about these consequences of having the power. What is a good consequence? So you have to figure out the boundary. Sometimes you know what boundary it is, but the consequence is the really hard part, and it has to be something you can uphold. Yeah, here's what my spouse never admitted to having an A-later. It's not about bringing it up. It's about saying, you know what? You and I both know that you cheated with so-and-so, or that you were cheating, or that you were, if you don't know the names, you know. And you know what? It's not something we have, you know, we don't have to discuss it here right now. No. But we both know about it, so denying is stupid. We're not, we can discuss it at a therapist's office. I'm not opening it for a discussion now, but to deny it, I don't have stupid written across my forehead. End of discussion. Then he wants to monster at you. Monster, monster, monster. You know, hey, I'm not going to engage with you. Too bad, buddy. I'm not going to engage with you. Hey, you know, I know you're having an affair. You know you're having an affair. No, I'm not going to agree to disagree, because we're talking about facts here. That's like, I don't think President Lincoln was killed by John Wilkes Booth, and you do. You know, we're not going to have alternative facts. I'm going to use that. You know, I know that, you know, we have to come to a point where we agree on our facts. And here's, you know, that we're not agreeing to disagree. This isn't a matter of, like, purple is a really nice color. We can agree to disagree on opinions, but I'm not going to agree to disagree on things that are fact. And I know that when it comes to things that you can't prove, but they really are, if they are real, it is a fact that Chuck had an affair in the past. He and I both know that, and there's not a disagreement on it. You know, it's an actual thing that happened. So it's not something that is like this subjective idea. You can have disagreements on policies and ideas. And, you know, something is nice, warm, hot, cold, you know, adjectives. So I don't want you to have a discussion. I don't want you to bring up the alienator in that sense. But I also don't want you to deny it. And I want you to save it, however, because it is for the therapeutic environment. It's like, you know, yeah, but this is going to be discussed in therapy. Because this is, you know, you had a midlife crisis, but when you bring in an infidelity into it, that's what the crisis becomes around, at least for the left behind spouse. It's about that. Okay, I have to go. Wow, I went really long. So I will see everybody, or you will see me in the next videos. Please, please, please submit more questions, because it is like my favorite thing is doing the recordings, these lives and the recordings. I mean, I do the coachings and everything, but I think just answering the questions is my favorite thing. I love it. So submit. If you don't feel like you're submitting too many, I don't think I've ever had too many. I think I have answered every question that I've ever gotten, unless I haven't, and if I haven't, it's because I actually missed it and just forgot it. You know, if someone slipped through. So I answer them. I don't get too many yet. So I will see you all, or you'll see me next week when you submit the questions and you see me on the recordings. Okay. Bye-bye.